No woman has been sentenced to death by the U.S. federal government in almost 70 years. But Lisa Montgomery is to be executed here in 7 days.
The transfer was long, tense, but Lisa showed no signs of fatigue. She entered her final 24 hours alert, not calm, not in control, but gripped by a storm of legal uncertainty. Her execution had already been delayed once. In December, her defense team was struck by COVID-19, halting preparations. A court granted a temporary stay, but her lawyers said the government broke the rules, shortening the required 90-day notice to just 35. Now, hours before death, the legal fight surged again. The Court of Appeals agreed. A temporary stay was issued. A moment of hope, but it was hanging by a thread. Her day didn't unfold like most executions because what was coming next, no one expected. Lisa Marie Montgomery was no stranger to darkness. In 2004, she drove from Kansas to Skidmore, Missouri, pretending to buy a puppy. But her real target was 23-year-old Bobby Jo Stinnett, 8 months pregnant, alone in her home. What happened next was unthinkable. Lisa strangled Bobby Jo and with a kitchen knife cut the baby from her womb. Bobby died where she fell. The infant girl somehow survived, found alive the next day and returned to family. Lisa was arrested within hours. By 2007, she stood trial and was sentenced to death. To many, the savagery of her crime defined her, but others saw something deeper, a woman shaped by decades of torment. Years of sexual abuse, mental illness, and untreated trauma carved scars long before that drive to Missouri. Her defenders said she was broken long before she ever broke the law. As the night deepened, Lisa Montgomery remained fragile and withdrawn, slipping further from reality. She refused sedatives, staying awake and quietly scribbling notes to her lawyers and family. Prison staff called her the most silent, distant death watch inmate they'd seen in years. Lights burning non-stop, guards rotating outside her cell, cameras recording every motionless moment. By morning, her breakfast lay untouched. She curled into herself, a ghost-like figure fading from the chaos beyond her walls. Outside her cell, her attorneys raced against time, filing urgent motions to halt the execution. The Department of Justice pushed back fiercely, dismissing the mental incompetence claim as a last-ditch ploy. But lead attorney Kelly Henry stood firm. Lisa was mentally shattered, a victim of lifelong trauma, unable to understand her punishment, a key legal argument. That night, a federal judge granted a temporary stay on those grounds, a fragile hope. Yet by late morning, the Supreme Court overturned the stay, clearing the path forward despite the controversy. In her final hours, Lisa Montgomery was alone. Outside the prison walls, her half-sister Diane waited, holding space in the quiet.
It's past 6. There are last-minute appeals. For those at home, the uncertainty is unbearable.
We're still waiting to know the fate of my friend Lisa.
As the hours passed, Lisa Montgomery's mind slipped further away. Diagnosed with depression, PTSD, and borderline personality disorder, experts said she no longer understood what was happening. Prison staff described her as ghost-like, silent, distant, unreachable, unmoved by the legal storm outside. Her lawyers watched her fade hour by hour, eyes dull, drifting into psychosis. A friend said it was like sending a 5-year-old into an adult world she couldn't grasp.
And I'm praying for a positive outcome, and that tomorrow she'll still be here with us.
Yet others recalled her confession, "I am a monster," showing she once knew right from wrong. But in these final hours, that clarity was gone. Only a woman unraveling, lost in her fading mind. Throughout the night, Lisa moved with quiet stillness. She refused sedatives, stayed awake, quietly scribbling notes to family and lawyers. She stopped eating, meals untouched. No protests, no last requests, no outbursts. Just the same eerie calm, a haunting silence before the end. Lisa Montgomery's journey to the federal death chamber began hours earlier. Under heavy guard, she was transferred from the federal women's prison in Texas, a long, tense trip. She arrived in Terre Haute, Indiana, just steps from the execution chamber, as the clock struck midnight. Her final 24 hours had begun. The official hour arrived, 5 p.m., January 12, 2021. Lisa Montgomery was scheduled to die. Each passing minute edged her closer to midnight, the deadline when President Trump's execution window would close, handing the case to the incoming Biden administration, which promised to halt federal executions. Still, her warrant was for January 12th. Once set in motion, the process would continue, even if it stretched past midnight. Then, at the stroke of midnight, exactly 24 hours after it began, Lisa stepped into the cold, clinical chamber. Well past midnight, the curtains slid open. Lisa Montgomery appeared before the witnesses. She turned her head slightly, eyes drifting toward the small crowd behind the glass. An Associated Press reporter later described her as momentarily bewildered. Her face mask, a quiet symbol of the COVID era, was gently removed. The warden stepped forward, asking if she had any last words. In a soft, muffled voice, she said no and closed her eyes tightly. The only sign of tension, her fingers tapped lightly, rhythmically against the gurney straps. As the chemicals flowed, Lisa licked her lips, let out a brief, hoarse gasp, and then fell still.
In the dead of night, Lisa Montgomery is put to death.
She was the first woman executed by the U.S. federal government in nearly 70 years.
Lisa's mental state deteriorated in her last days. She lost touch with reality. America has executed a woman who many believe was incapable of understanding her own death.
How could a woman, haunted by decades of trauma and severe mental illness, face a death she may never have fully understood?